The first one was outside the post office on a Tuesday in March. You'd been going to that post office every week for 3 years. You knew the building. You knew the cracked step at the bottom, the brass handle worn to copper at the grip, the way the door swung heavy when the weather was cold. You knew it the way you know anything you have never thought carefully about. That Tuesday, there was a fresh pour of concrete at the base of the handicap ramp. Orange safety cones, yellow caution tape. The smell of it, mineral, alkaline, something underneath that you could not name, drifting out over the cold morning air. You didn't touch it. You stepped around the tape, mailed your package, nodded to the clerk, left. You were not curious about wet concrete. You were 34 years old and you had other things to think about. You walked past it again on the way to your car. There were 2 handprints in the cement. Side by side, slightly angled, the way a person kneels and leans forward with both hands open. The left print had a distinctive shape. The index finger bent inward at the second joint. The scar ridge running across the palm from the base of the thumb to the wrist. You looked at your own left hand. The bent finger, the scar, the ridge. Yours. They were yours. You told yourself someone else had the same injury. You told yourself fingerprints don't compress that way, that the ridge lines were just part of the texture of the concrete, that you were doing what humans do, which is find patterns where there are none. You got in your car and you drove to work, and you did not think about it for the rest of the day, but you thought about it that night. And the next morning you walked back to the post office before it opened, and you crouched beside the finished concrete, which was now hard and dry and permanent. And you looked at the prints. You put your left hand flat on the ground next to the left print. The size was identical. The scar ridge was identical. The bent index finger was identical, stamped into the concrete beside the prints. In the neat block type of a contractor's date stamp were 5 digits. A date. You looked at it. You looked at your phone. The date in the concrete was tomorrow. You went home. You sat at the kitchen table and you thought about what it means when your handprints appear in wet concrete before you have touched it, dated for a day that hasn't happened yet. You thought about it for a long time, and then you decided it was a coincidence, and you went to bed. The next morning, the morning of the date in the concrete, you drove past the post office without stopping. You drove to work. You worked all day. Nothing happened. You drove home. You pulled into the driveway and sat in the car in the dark, thinking. Nothing happened. You were right. It was nothing. The second one appeared 2 weeks later. It was on the sidewalk outside the elementary school, where your sister taught 3rd grade. Fresh concrete, orange cones, same smell. You weren't even supposed to be there. You'd taken a wrong turn, a shortcut that wasn't, and you came around the corner and saw the wet patch, and your first thought, before you even registered what you were looking at, was, not again. Your prints were already in it. The date stamped beside them was 4 days from now. You took photographs this time, You measured the prints with a tape measure from your car. You went home and you looked at the photographs on your laptop screen for an hour and a half. The left hand, bent index finger scar ridge, yours, unmistakably. The date, 4 days away. You did not tell anyone. You didn't know what to say. You spent 4 days waiting for something to happen, and nothing happened. And you told yourself again that you were building a pattern from coincidences, that this was how paranoia worked, that you needed more sleep. The third one was outside the hospital. You were there to visit your father. Routine appointment, nothing serious. He just needed a ride. You came around the corner from the parking garage, and there was a work crew. Cones, caution tape, the smell. And before you even looked down, you felt the cold certainty of knowing what you would see. Your prints, left hand, right hand, bent finger, scar ridge, and the date stamp. But this time, the date was yesterday. You stood there for a long time. You looked at the prints. You looked at the date. You thought, yesterday. Yesterday morning, you had woken up in your own bed and made coffee and driven to work and eaten lunch at your desk and driven home and heated up something from the freezer and gone to bed. You had been here yesterday in some sense that you could not account for, that the concrete could account for, that the date stamp could prove, and you had no memory of it. You called your sister. You told her about the post office. You told her about the school. You told her about the hospital. You told her about the dates, the ones that were future, the one that was past. She was quiet for a long time. She said, "Danny." She said your name the way she said it when you were children, and you'd done something she didn't understand. She said, "How many times?" You told her. Post office, school, hospital. 3 times. 2 future, 1 past. She said, "Have you checked today's date against the post office one?" You had not. You sat in the hospital parking garage and you looked at the photograph of the post office concrete. You looked at the date on your phone. The post office date was 16 days ago. And yesterday, the day you could not account for. The day the hospital concrete said you had been present. Yesterday was the post office date. You had been at the post office 16 days ago on a Tuesday morning. You had mailed a package. You had not touched the concrete, but you had been there. And something had put your hands in the wet cement the day before and stamped a date that matched the day you showed up. You drove home, and you sat in the kitchen again, and you thought, it isn't the past. It isn't the future. It's exactly 1 day off. The print will appear the day before you arrive. Every time, which meant the hospital print, dated yesterday, meant you would be at the hospital today. And you were. You were here, visiting your father. And you had come here without thinking. And you were here. And the question you could not stop thinking about. The question that kept you from sleeping for a week after that. Was not what was putting your hands in the concrete. It was not how. It was not why. The question was, who was driving? You had been making these decisions. The post office, the school, the hospital, thinking they were yours, thinking you were choosing. And something had known, one day in advance, every time. Not guessed, known the way you know something you have already done. You have found 11 prints since the hospital. All of them are dated one day before you arrived at that location. All of them are yours. You have never touched wet concrete. You have never woken up missing time. But last Tuesday, you found one on the sidewalk outside your own front door. The date on it was today. Twilight Registry. This case was submitted without a case number. The submitter did not include their name. They wrote at the end of the submission, "I am still going where I'm supposed to go. I don't know how to stop. I don't know if I'm the one deciding." If you find a handprint somewhere that should not be yours, the registry would like to know. The case number is pending. The investigation is open. Whatever leaves those prints is consistent. It is punctual. It has not missed a single day.